Well, I have a new favorite question. As a coach and a facilitator, my job is to ask powerful questions that prompt deep thought and collaborative conversation, hopefully some genuine and lasting insight for those that are in the room. And I'm always on the lookout for a good question. I collect them, a bit like a 90s schoolboy might collect Pokemon cards, or maybe HR collects complaints. For those who are on the journey to becoming a coaching leader, something that I speak about a lot, collecting good questions and reviewing them regularly is an excellent strategy in order to develop your coaching question repertoire. And so recently, I was at a strategy day for a client. I was facilitating the day, and I printed out some cards displaying my new favorite question. And I placed the cards on the middle of the table, and I instructed people that whenever someone presented an idea and they questioned it, someone was to hold up the card and ask the magic question. And I watched people do this, and throughout the day, as they did, I saw that the engagement began to build, the conversations got deeper. And the feedback that I got at the end of the day was that the conversations that were sparked by these cards, well, they were an absolute highlight for people. So what is that question? What is this magic question that I love? Well, it's simply this. What would need to be true? Okay, what would need to be true for something to be successful? I first came across this particular question when I was reading this book here, Playing to Win, How Strategy Really Works by AG Lafley and Roger Martin. And if you're looking to develop your strategic thinking capability, I reckon it's a must-read book. But Lafley, who was the CEO of Procter Gamble, he used to encourage this particular question to explore ideas during strategy development conversations. See, whenever his team were tempted to disregard one idea in favour of advocating for their own, this question prompted a deeper level of curiosity and a consideration of a wider set of strategic options. And what I love about this question when I stop and I think about it is it shifts the focus from limitations to possibility. See, most people, they think about options from a position around what is true today, not necessarily what could be true tomorrow. Without considering, what could work, well, they consider, what will work in today's constraints and what won't work in today's constraints. But they don't necessarily consider, well, what if we made some changes and what could work if we created the conditions for success? See, by asking what would need to be true for this to be successful, we invite people to really create an alternate reality, almost like a simulation, if you will, where these current constraints aren't necessarily preventative. This alternative reality is where we can explore what are the environments where conditions are favourable for this particular idea. And in doing so, people might realise that the changes necessary to create those environments aren't really that great. Maybe they could be made relatively easily. And maybe it is a good idea after all. If we return to the strategy day I was talking about, one of the key questions for my client, the one that they were wrestling with, was whether they expand beyond their city of origin. Now, the room was a little bit divided in this. There were some that thought doing so was the natural next step in evolution for the company. Others saw it potentially as a dilution of the brand or a resource drain. They thought it might be prioritizing ego-driven national footprint rather than just focusing on core business and profitability for the business. And so the question was asked, right? They held up the card. What would need to be true to make expansion make sense. And what ensued was, ensued was a vigorous conversation around financial viability of different locations, around market sizes, around the presence of competitors, and also the presence of strategic partners that they didn't want to compete against. And what came out of those conversations was a really clear set of criteria for expansion. You know, this question hadn't necessarily resolved the debate definitively, but it certainly reframed it. The room stopped arguing about, whether to expand or not, and they started considering, well, what are the conditions we can build that would make expansion viable? And at the end of it, it wasn't a matter of if, but when. And everybody was on board, but it was only when it made sense. You know, as much as I love this question and using it in a room for strategy development or with strategy conversations, one of my favorite things about it is its versatility. See, for me, its utility and impact has been proven again and again in a wide variety of settings. Take resistance to change. You might ask, well, what would need to be true in order for this change to make sense for you? Or what would need to be true in order for you to get on board with this change? You might ask it in a project planning context. And you might say, well, what would need to be true for this project to be wildly successful? Not just successful, but wildly successful, exceeding people's expectations. You might ask it in a coaching context where you're challenging beliefs a little bit more, where you go, well, what would need to be true for you to shift this belief? What would need to be true for you to be more confident in this approach? It might be in a meeting setting. You might ask, well, what would need to be true for us to gain consensus on this? Or even in your own individual decision making, what would need to be true in order for me not to regret this decision in 5 years? In each scenario, I've used the same core of the question, but I've tweaked it and it's allowed me to adopt, and my clients to adopt, a perspective shift. The thinking is richer, the confidence is greater, and the outcomes are always better. So my question to you is, where can you increase your impact by asking what would need to be true?